Yeah, don't you? A few years back, my wife and I took Lamaze classes. It was more for her than for me, I think. And it was in preparation for my son's birth, which is actually, his birthday is tomorrow. So if you see Charlie running around anywhere, give him a thumbs up, and like that. But anyway, so his birthday is on February 2nd, so I'm reminiscing about that whole birth experience. And we went to the Lamaze class, and we learned how to breathe properly. And I learned how to tell Jen how to breathe properly. And she learned how to pretend to pay attention to me telling her to breathe properly, and all these kinds of things. And then we finally get to the day. It's February 2, 2000. Cool days, by the way, 2000. And I wake up in the morning, and my wife is not in bed. She's on the couch, like all pale, and saying, "I don't know, but I think I might be in labor." And I'm like, right on! It's time for us to exercise all this stuff that we've been paying for this class for. Now we get to actually use this, so I'm all fired up. I'm like, okay, how far apart are they? And we're talking, and it's like they're 20 minutes apart or something. So we're dealing with these kinds of things. We're talking about how all the facts and figures, and I'm not being very, caring or emotional or anything like that. I'm just trying to pay attention to the details. And I want to teach my wife how to breathe properly because I'm the coach, and she's just ignoring me. And we get to the hospital finally, and she says, I want to just kind of walk around, and the instructions told us that she was supposed to stand like this with her hands on my shoulder, her head on this shoulder, and she was supposed to go. And so I said, "Jen, do you want to stand up and hug me?" No! It's like it all went out the window. Everything about that day just was completely different from the way we planned it. It was one ordeal after another, until finally, after my son was born by cesarean section, I had to pay attention to him for about 2 hours while my wife was still in recovery. And it was like we were isolated from each other. Nothing that day went according to plan. Labor, if you ask any woman who's a mom, their labor story, you will often hear remarkable things. Mostly gross, but nonetheless remarkable. And the thing that amazes me about labor, childbirth, is that you put in all this effort for an outcome that is uncertain. You put in all this effort, and you don't even know if you're going to like the results. We hope. I hope the kid looks good. I hope, everything's okay with that. You put in all this effort, and you're not really sure what's going to happen. Well, I'm going to use that as a metaphor for ministry today. And here's the core principle that comes from this metaphor. You might want to go ahead and fill it in your blanks right there. But it's this, that life's greatest blessings come through the labor of selflessness. Life's greatest blessings come through the labor of selflessness. Before the child is born, the mother says, "I don't know if this is going to work out." After the child is born, it's like everything changes. You see the face of that baby, and instantly there's a love in you that you never knew you could have before. And the story goes the same for almost everyone who's ever had a child. It's just miraculous that way. But here's the deal. Life's greatest blessings come through the labor of selflessness. I'm just going to show you the most selfless act ever. It's in Hebrews 12:2. I printed it on your note sheet. It says, "Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." Jesus himself went through an amazing act of selflessness to bring about the most amazing blessing ever. The fact that you and I could know forgiveness from sin. The fact that you and I could have a relationship with God. It's a phenomenal reality. Now, I happen to know someone, in fact, he's my cousin-in-law, who has a story of some selflessness. Now, he is a humble guy, and so I'm going to tell you all the great things about him before he comes up here. I'll just let you hear it for yourself. This is some pretty cool stuff. Mark, would you mind coming on up here? Everybody, this is Mark Withers. Would you welcome him for me? There you go. Mark is part of Community Reformed Church on 18th Street, right? And how long have you been part of that church?
32 years.
32 years. Well, go ahead and have a seat and tell me a little bit about your spiritual story. I want them to hear sort of where you've come from. Okay.
I have been a Christian since I was 11 years old, and not really making an impact in our community. And it hasn't been until the last 4 or 5 years that God has been really pushing me out of my comfort zone. And that's really what it's all about, is getting out of your comfort zone. That's the secret of ministry. The last two and a half years, God has put me in a position with the Tippecanoe County Jail to go into the jails twice a week and do ministry there. We go on Tuesday nights and we go on Sunday afternoons into the jail. There's a little over 500 inmates in the jail, and our team reaches about 200 of those 500 inmates that we touch each week. So there is a craving, there's a need. The men and women in jail realize that there is a need for redemption, and of course God's grace is there for them to do that. That training for jail ministry started about 5 years ago when a friend asked me to help serve dinner at the Lafayette Urban Ministry, the homeless shelter here in town. And God had to really begin to work on my heart. It took him probably 3 years to do this, but I had some prejudices and some thoughts that God had to cleanse out of my life. And so he began to do that through a simple ministry of serving the homeless here in Lafayette. If you've never been here at 845, just a block down the street on Main Street, when all 40 or 45 of those men and women are walking to the homeless shelter, it kind of gives you a pain, I guess, in your heart, to see them, because many are lost, and all are without homes. Usually what they have is what they carry in their knapsack, on their back. But God began to get rid of a lot of prejudices and a lot of unclean ideals in my life, and it took him 3 years to do that in preparation for this jail ministry. God put on my heart that I would minister to homeless, drug addicts, alcoholics, and then along the way, he also added AIDS.